Thank you so much for coming out today. I really do appreciate it. To everyone on this site, thank you for making yourselves available. I know that the residents have a lot of questions, and we are making sure that we answer those. The way that we're going to do the setup tonight is we're going to run through the presentation, looking through the questions that have already been submitted. I think quite a few of those will be answered. I'll vet those, so if they're answered during the presentation, we'll move on to other questions. If you think of something during the presentation, if you can write that down and either get it to myself or Rhonda Dorfin, we'll be happy to do that. With the respect for time and everyone else's time that's here, we do have an SRIA meeting that is starting immediately after this. So we want to get through the presentation, and then we'll get through as many questions as we possibly can so that SRIA can start on time as well. So thank you so much for being here. I know I didn't start that off. I'm Ashley Hoffberger. I'm your county commissioner. I really do appreciate it. We are available if you want to email us. It's district4@myescambia.com. So if you have questions that don't get answered tonight, please email those. That's district4, the number 4, @myescambia.com. And with that, I'll hand it over because I do know we are on a time crunch. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Jim Hagan. Thank you for allowing me to explain how our traffic signal operates and how we monitor the traffic signal out here at Pensacola Beach and throughout the county. We could not operate all of the traffic signals in the county without a team of people. I appreciate Ms. Hoffberger and your predecessor, and Commissioner Bender, and the others that have been helping. Lieutenant Barnes has been very instrumental in helping manage the traffic out here on Pensacola Beach. So thank you for that. If I've left anybody out, apologize. My name is Jim Hagan. I'm the Escambia County Traffic Engineer. I'm dedicated to the operations and the continuous maintenance of traffic signals in Escambia County. And just to give you an idea, a lot of people don't know this, there's 212 traffic signals in the county, 138 pedestrian flashing beacons, 67 warning beacons, 9 emergency traffic signals at fire stations, 54 speed activated warning displays, 46 uninterruptible power supplies or battery backups, 38 CCTV cameras, and we currently have 8.3 miles of fiber optic cable that we operate and maintain. So basically, if there's electricity that controls the movement of vehicles or pedestrians or bicyclists, I'm responsible to ensure that the traffic control devices, they meet the need of the safety and the health of our community. So give you a little background. Escambia County and the region, we're on the cutting edge of traffic signal technology. And what does that mean? We've lagged behind for years in Escambia, Santa Rosa County. And we're just real fortunate here in the recent past to have the Emerald Coast Regional Council, the Transportation Planning Council, and the TPO, FDOT, and the local agencies, including Gulf Breeze, City of Milton, Santa Rosa County, City of Pensacola, and obviously Escambia County, to establish the communication to all of the traffic signals. So in the last 10 years, we've established some type of communication to all of those traffic signals. The communication makes it possible for us to operate the traffic signals more efficiently. The traffic signal can send us an alert, so if it's in flash, it will tell us, hey, something happened, I went to flash mode, and we have to send somebody out to fix it. So it's not something we can remotely fix. That communication also provides us with some advanced troubleshooting, so we can look at the logs of the controller and see what happened. Was their detected from the video camera above the intersection? Was that occurring? What did that signal get to the controller? And we can look at that. So one of the important things to take away from today is if you do have a problem with a traffic signal, always take out your phone, if you could, safely, and look at the time. The time of day on your phone at 4:04 tells me to go where to look in the logs to see if there's a problem at 4:04. There's 10 logs, 10 to 200 logs every second, and I can't possibly read all of them. So if I know down to the minute or two, it helps tremendously. Anyway, we have a consultant that I work with. He works for the Transportation Planning Organization. He's been instrumental in setting up all of the technology and monitoring traffic signals, especially on the weekends here at the beach. And I'll introduce Dustin Taylor. And he's kind of provided this PowerPoint presentation. It's about 20 slides. We've gone through it a couple weeks ago, so it shouldn't take very long. Promise.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So like I said, I'm Destin Taylor. I work with DRMP, and I'm actually a traffic consultant with the TPO. So we provide the signal operations for the whole TPO region. So not only Escambia County, but I help out Escambia, Santa Rosa County, City of Pensacola, City of Gulf Breeze, and City of Milton as well. So I've got all these under my belt, and so not only am I helping Jim, but I'm also helping the engineers at the other agencies as well. So a little bit, let's get to the topic at hand, right? So this is some of the background information that a little bit of what we've been doing and where we're going. So we started managing Pensacola beach traffic signal in 2017 as a joint effort with Escambia County. So DRMP and the Florida Alabama TPO, and with collaboration with FDOT, worked with this county to figure out, is there anything that we can do back in 2017? So we started this, and we only started on special events and holidays at the beginning. And so it grew to, we saw the need that what we were doing was making an impact, and then we saw that it grew into doing it every weekend, not only just special events. It's almost busier every weekend nowadays rather than is on holidays like 4th of July. So, but a big thing happened in 2020 when we went to toll by plate. So that kind of opened up the floodgates, right? Not everybody's stopping at the toll plaza anymore. So it opened the floodgates and really allowed us to take control of the signal and really control traffic to keep off of 98. And so I'm going to go through the tools we use and the cameras that we also use. So to start off with, we have it's called a MyVision Core, and what that is just a black box inside of the traffic signal cabinets that you see on the side of the road, and that gives us communications to the traffic signal, so we can make any changes that we need to on the fly, instantly from our laptops or from our central communication center. But we also have live streaming cameras in very key spots all around the beach. So we have some that I'm going to show you here in a second, such as these. So these two at the top are at the toll plaza, so it allows me to see the peak of Bob Sykes Bridge. Also allows me to see the south end looking towards the water towers to see the traffic conditions there. I always like to show this bottom one. This is the parking lot camera that you can see on MyEscambia's website. That shows the parking lot during a Blue Angels show. So you can see everybody parked up on the curb. Can't hardly see the sand with all the people out there. But we have this view, and this gives us a nice view of Fort Pickens Road down at the bottom to see if those queues are getting filled up. It also gives us a view of the parking lot exit. So if we see the parking lot exit get filled up, we also know that to put in a flush plan for Fort Pickens Road, because it also helps the parking lot. This is another very key one that we have near the fish sign. So this is looking at 98, at the ramp off of 98. So this gives us a view of the Bob Sykes Bridge in the top left corner. So if we're backed up all the way to here, I know that's a key decision point for me, because we've got to keep traffic off of US 98. It's our major economic development corridor for the region, for the whole Panhandle. And so that's really a big priority for us, is try to keep traffic off of 98. And so we keep traffic moving southbound as best as we can, while trying to also keep a look at the local side streets to make sure that they're going. And that moves us to this camera view. This is on top of the condominium at South Harbor, looking at Fort Pickens Road. So this is also a key decision point for me. So I'm looking at the left side of the screen. Once a car or vehicle stops at the left side of the screen, I know we just need to go ahead and put in a flush plan for Fort Pickens Road. And so as soon as I see that, I'll put in a quick flushing plan before it gets backed up, because once it gets backed up, it's really hard to recover. It's really hard to get back into the regular free flow conditions. So we try to get ahead of the game and put in a flush as soon as that happens. But again, I'm trying to balance the two, right? I'm trying to keep traffic off of 98 as well as Fort Pickens Road. Can't do both. And so I want to go through what a typical beach peak season day. So peak season means summertime. So it's now March into September. Our average vehicle count average 18 to 20,000 vehicles through the toll plaza per day. We'll have around 30 to 35,000 vehicles move through the intersection. So whether that's coming southbound, taking a left, wherever it might be, that's an average. Then we have an average total of 2,000 to 4,000 pedestrians going through the crosswalk at the signalized intersection. And the parking lot will be at full capacity around noon. That's an average day. And we'll have minor congestion on the Bob Sykes Bridge, usually to the peak, but staying off of 98. And so we noticed these patterns. So we noticed there was a pattern. Around 9 to 5, a ton of people coming to the beach. But around 12:45, 1 o'clock, Fort Pickens Road start needing flushing because the parking lot's full. Once the parking lot gets full, that's an immediate cause and effect to where Fort Pickens Road, the through traffic for Fort Pickens, is also going to get backed up. So starting around 3:30, that's when there's really not much we can do. There's a bunch of people still coming onto the beach. We're backed up to 98. We have a ton of people trying to get off the beach now because they've been there since 10 a.m., 9 a.m. So we're trying to make everybody happy at the same time, which is very hard to do, but we try to do the best we can at a balancing act between the two.
Just note, southbound, northbound, and Fort Pickens Road. As he was explaining, all three directions where people are coming.
Right.
This is the most difficult time. It's about 3:30.
Right. And so then around sunset, we all know mass exodus. Everybody's trying to get off the beach. And so we do the best we can, but we have to keep in mind not only the parking lot, Fort Pickens Road, but also Via de Luna. So we have all these directions trying to go at the same time. And so we do the best we can, making those quick on-the-fly decisions into the controller. And so we created a timing plan, multiple timing plans into the controller that it runs by itself. It has a schedule that puts in a flush every 5 to 20 minutes for Fort Pickens Road because we just noticed that was the trend. That was the trend over the last few years. Around this time, around 1 o'clock, it needed a flush. So we put in a flush for 5 minutes, and that goes back to serving southbound traffic. And that's what this looks like. And so these timing plans are what's in the controller right now. So out there in the intersection, I don't have to do anything to it. This is what it runs every day. And so you can see there's a lot going on. But on the left side, this is our timing plan. So that's the actual maximum amount of green time each movement's going to get. And so it goes in between mainly 2 and 3. 2 is the priority for Via de Luna and Pensacola Beach Boulevard, getting people onto the beach. And then number 3 is my flush plan for Fort Pickens Road, which gives over 2 minutes to a Fort Pickens Road just to get that traffic flushed out moving. And usually it's recovered back in free flow conditions after a couple flushes. On the right side of the screen, you can see the schedule. So this is the schedule that's in the timing, in the controller. And so at 2 o'clock, we put it into that a ton of green time for traffic onto the beach. Then starting around 12:45, we put in those periodic flushes for Fort Pickens Road. And that's what you see. That's why there's so many entries, because I'm flushing it every 20 to 30 minutes or so. And so Jim, you want to go into a little detail on that?
Sure. So he goes a little fast, I go a little slow. But like he's saying, plan number 2, Pensacola Beach Boulevard, Via de Luna. Fort Pickens Road is getting 40 seconds of green time, maximum green time. So if a car is sitting on Fort Pickens Road, basically during plan 2, which might be between 12:50 and 1 o'clock, they're going to get a maximum of 40 seconds. And then at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, plan number 3 kicks in. And so they give you 140 seconds on Fort Pickens Road. So what we have found when he says the word flush, this is what he means. The 140 seconds of green time is given for Fort Pickens Road for 5 minutes. Okay? So now there's no traffic. We can pull up the camera that's on the top of South Harbor Condominium, look at Fort Pickens Road, and we see no traffic. When we look at the traffic at 3 Mile Bridge or a camera that's in Gulf Breeze, and we start to see backs up, cars are starting to slow down. They're not completely stopped yet, they're still moving. And that's what we want. We want to just keep them moving, keep them moving. So we'll flip back over here at Pensacola Beach Boulevard to be green for 135 seconds at maximum green time. If there's no, and I'm going to keep stressing this maximum green time. If a car is not there in the zone, the detection zone, it's not going to give 135 seconds. Okay? It'll give whatever time as long as cars are there. And then these other things, they're kind of confusing. Maybe we should have taken them off, but that's for the left turns. LT stands for left turn. Pensacola Beach Boulevard, eastbound left turn. Via de Luna, westbound left turn. And this is the Circle K sidelines, westbound left. And yes, so that is the other movement coming out of, what's the name, I'm sorry, the gift shop?
Yeah.
Flounders. So anyway, they're getting 26 seconds, 36. This is like the minimum amount of time we can give them. It's basically the amount of time somebody can walk across the road. We don't want to lower that anymore because people can't walk across the road that fast for the walk center. So anyway, by flipping back and forth over the day, and I cut it off here just to blow it up so we could all see it, but this time goes on and it's just automatically in the controller already. So I'll have Dustin explain now, where does monitoring come in? This is where people start to ask, well, what are they doing? Why are they monitoring? You have it programmed in. So I'll let Justin take over from there.
So yeah, like you said, we're starting to see this more often, a high volume day. So this was back in like 2016 to up till around 2021, I'd say. That was a typical day. Like we didn't really have to do much to the controller. It was doing it pretty well on its own. That's how we built the program over the years, is just trial and error, getting something to work. And so this is an example of a high volume day. So May 4th, I picked this one out because it really shows what a high volume day looks like. So we had over 24,000 cars headed southbound through the toll plaza. We also, which is 4,000 more than that average I showed you earlier. We had over 40,000 total vehicles drive through the intersection one way or another, which is 5,000 more cars than that average number I showed you earlier. We also had way more pedestrians. 3,000 more pedestrians walked through the crosswalks at that time. We had heavy congestion on 98 at that time at the ramp, and congestion on Fort Pickens Road and westbound via DeLuna in the afternoon. And we had emergency vehicles responding to multiple calls throughout the day. And so this is what that looked like from my view in the cameras. And so I'm looking at this camera to see, okay, I got traffic backed up onto the ramp of 98, and so I need to keep an eye on that, make sure to keep priority moving southbound because of that, trying to keep traffic and get traffic to like free up the hospital if somebody needs to get there. And this is the 3 Mile Bridge. So once we're affecting through traffic near Daniel Street and Gulf Breeze, once we're affecting through traffic, not all this traffic is going to the beach, obviously, but we've now backed up on the 98 and we're affecting the people just trying to get to our east partners in Destin and Fort Walton. So, and then I'm also looking at this camera. So parking lots near full capacity at 11 o'clock. And this is when like I said, we start noticing those problems on Fort Pickens Road as well. But I'm checking the queues down there and see if we're fine. Usually this will clear out in that 40 seconds you saw earlier. If we've got this amount of queue right around where the parking lot exit starts, that's the queue point.
That's a Sunday. That day is a Sunday.
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's a Sunday.
So that's a Sunday at noon.
Yes.
Before people start leaving the Fort Pickens parking lot. That's when the problem really starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let me keep going.
Agreed.
And so we have heavy congestion. This is when the problem starts. And so what it doesn't show is when everybody's trying to max exodus. We're also looking at this camera and the Mardi Grasville or Pensacola Beach Resort camera to check on Fort Pickens Road at this time. But we have to keep in mind, we try to stay off 98 as much as possible. And so throughout the day, we manually take control of the intersection. We put it in that plan 2 as long as possible. And then once I showed you that decision point earlier, when it's on the left side of the screen, that's when I'm putting in a flush immediately, try to get ahead of the game, and then put it right back into that plan 2 to keep traffic moving southbound. So nighttime, we all know it's max exit. Everybody trying to leave that 3:30 time period, and we do the best we can. Still people pouring onto the beach, people trying to leave the beach. That's 2 different directions we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. And really, you have to pick one priority over another. You can't pick both. And so what we do is try to keep traffic off 98. Once it's off 98, then we try to keep traffic moving on Fort Pickens Road. And so late at night, we're not worried about southbound traffic anymore. And so we're just worried about getting traffic off the beach. And so that's when we start thinking about Fort Pickens Road, putting in the flush, trying to get that parking lot empty. And so that's when that plan 3 goes into play, that 140 seconds. That gives enough time to create a large amount of space for traffic to be able to get the gaps and start flowing out of the parking lot, is what we've noticed.
Let me stop him there. Let's say we take it up to 400 seconds. 400 seconds, Fort Pickens Road, all green. What happens?
On the Sunday afternoon.
What happens?
On the Sunday afternoon, nothing
I'm
happens.
going to tell you what happens. A car gets to the traffic signal. The next car behind it is about a quarter mile away. And what happens, I'm just telling you, after a certain amount of time, you start to, it doesn't make sense anymore. Like the traffic on Pensacola Beach Boulevard is there at the red light, but once they've waited for 180 seconds, we'll say 180, like 3 minutes, the gap, and he said it very quickly, and that's what I'm trying to focus on here, the gap between the cars gets so wide that it's very inefficient.
And not on Fort Pickens, not on a Sunday afternoon. I mean, I've lived on that road for 9 years and I can see it.
Okay.
It never has a gap.
Okay.
Okay.
So why is there traffic congestion, right? That's the big question. And so what we've noticed over the years, over the 5 years I've been watching this is what I've observed and what I've noticed. So number one, it's too many vehicles in a short amount of time for the southbound movement. A lot of people show up all at once, and that roadway just don't have the infrastructure to handle it. And so that's where this chart comes into play. So this is the hourly total volumes that went through the toll plaza at one time. So from 9 to 10, we had 1,700, and we've noticed 2,000 is the mark. 2,000 is when we start noticing backups and start noticing a little bit slower moving traffic and congestion. But you can see at 10 o'clock, we go past 2,000 by 2,400. So we go to, or not by 24, by 400. And so we're up to 2,400, and that lasts all the way up until 3 o'clock. And then we don't get underneath that 2,000 mark until 1,800. So we're oversaturated. So the roadway's too saturated to be able to handle that amount of traffic, and that's why we see those backups southbound. And so as a result of this, the side streets become congested because we got it, like I said, we're trying to keep traffic off of 98, trying our best to keep that traffic clear for the emergency vehicles, trying to get to the hospital right there off of in Gulf Breeze. And so we can't prioritize both, like I said earlier. We have to pick one or the other throughout the day. I've tried prioritizing both through my trial and errors and throughout the years. And what ends up happening is neither one's prioritized because they're having to wait a really long time. So I have to take into mind if the red times is too long, that causes queues. And like I said earlier, it's hard to catch back up. And so if I can get ahead of the game and pick one or the other, at least we're doing the best we can trying to do this balancing act. Biggest one, I know this is probably a big one, is parking. So once that parking lot fills up, I can't get them off the road. And so they're obviously going through that signal and I can't get them off the road. I'm keep having to serve them again and again and again. But it'd be more efficient if we could get them off the road. So parking's a big issue, obviously. And then heavy pedestrian activity around the signalized intersection, all our mid-block crossings, which we gotta have for safety, who has so much ped activity out there, it does stop traffic. And when you stop traffic, it's really hard to recover. So that 1 second takes 1 second of stopping, or well, not 1 second, but 5 seconds of stopping for a mid-block crossing, it probably takes 30 to 45 seconds to recover that one time. So if multiple cars do it, that's an exponential growth. And so, talking about growth, this is some of the volume growth that we've seen out there in Pensacola Beach. So 20,000 vehicles through the toll plaza is like our benchmark number. So you can see, this is the graph showing the number of 20,000 count days through the toll plaza that we've had over the years since we started recording in 2016. You can see 2016 to 2020, we stayed under 15. It was around 10, not too much growth. It was pretty flat. 2021, 3 Mile Bridge closed down, so that's why we took a hit there. But then when the bridge went back open in 2022, it grew almost double, like it went up to 20 times per year. And then the following year, in 2023, it doubled again. So we have 43 counts of 20,000 car days. And then in 2024, last year, it doubled from 2022, more than doubled, to 56 times per year. And we're seeing this trend again this year. I didn't show this year, obviously, because we're not done yet, but we're looking at the comparisons between last year and this year. We're like on par. So it's going to be another 56 to 60, 20,000 count time year. And so I want to show the historical benefits of what we do. So we've been doing this since 2016 or 2017, so we've kind of gotten some data since that point. And so I have to show these older dates. And so the bottom line is from 2019, the top line is from 2018. I use those numbers because I'm comparing apples to apples. That was before we went toll by plate. And so we started monitoring in 2019, and you can see we had over a 20% reduction in average travel times on the weekends, so Saturday and Sundays.
Between Chick-fil-A and...
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you, Jim. This is from Chick-fil-A and Gulf Breeze to the traffic signal.
What year did we open up the toll?
So that was in 2020. 2020. And so, good segue.
That's the next,
So this is the next graph.
That's the next slide.
I like showing this one because it shows the benefits of toll by plate rather than going by cash. So the top line is average in 2018 in June. So June's the peak month of what it looked like, what the travel times on average looked like on the weekends before we went toll by plate. The bottom, as you can see, it's a 35% travel time reduction on average for the whole month of June on the weekends, looking at Saturday and Sundays only. 35% travel time reductions just by opening up the floodgates at the toll plaza. And so now that we've put travel time devices out on the beach, we've been able to look at Fort Pickens Road as well. So we've got travel time devices at Peg Legs. We've also got one at Portofino. So we monitor trying to exit the beach now. Now that we've kind of solved southbound for as much as we could do for southbound, we started taking a look at the side streets to see what we do as far as exiting the beach. And so I like to show this off because it was kind of a perfect storm. So I picked the May the 4th date because that was the day, that was a really busy day when I made this presentation. It was a Sunday, but Saturdays are busier, but it's relatively the same amount of vehicles on that particular day. So I picked May 4th, this would be our benchmark here. So that's the blue line, which shows May 4th. So this is the travel times on Fort Pickens Road from Peg Legs to the traffic signal. And what we saw is I was able to have manual control of the intersection, putting in those flushes exactly when Fort Pickens Road needed them, not a second more, not a second less. And you can see the blue line, it stayed relatively flat. We barely got over 7 minutes, which is pretty much free flow conditions on that Sunday. But April 18th, Good Friday, we were not scheduled to monitor that day. The county was closed.
I was off, I was at the beach.
And I was also out of town. And it was just running its regular schedule. Somebody wasn't actively monitoring it. And those 2 days have very similar traffic numbers, 24,000, a little over 24,000 on each day. They're off by like 40 vehicles. And so as you can see, that orange line, we saw a huge peak because it didn't get that flush exactly when it needed it. And so since it didn't get that flush exactly when it needed it, it jumped up, and then like I keep saying, it's hard to recover at that point. So even though the traffic signal got that program flush in about 10, 15 minutes from then, it wasn't enough because it's just lost point. It's a lost point at that cost.
Appreciate Lieutenant Barnes calling me and telling me.
Yeah.
I was very embarrassed.
Yeah.
But it was
So lessons learned.
It was a perfect storm.
It was beautiful. That's probably the prettiest day of the year, that Good Friday was. I mean, it was
There no
absolutely
humidity.
gorgeous.
The previous weekends were rainy.
Can I ask a question? Do you pick out a certain vehicle and you watch it, and that's how you keep track of how long it takes from Peg Legs to get through the light?
Yeah, so we have travel time devices that's automated. What it's doing is looking at Bluetooth. So it's looking at your Bluetooth and all your devices, and so it takes an aggregated average of how many Bluetooth devices went through. And so what it's doing is once it's got 15 hits of that, from that point at Peg Legs to the traffic signal, so we got devices at both places, it tracks how long that took.
Okay, we do have some other questions that people wrote down, so I want to make sure that we get to these. So if you have additional ones, if you can just write those down and pass those over. Someone asked, can your cameras be shared as traffic cams for the public, maybe on Facebook or county website?
Yes, if we have the funding to do that.
Okay.
But my goal is to be very transparent. I would love to show you the Margaritaville camera, or I call it the camera at Pensacola
Beach Resort.
Beach Resort. I'd like to get that one live on our website, and we'll pick a Sunday and we'll put the clock at 300 seconds, and you'll see the gap in the card.
Well, and I understand because people get complacent and then they start texting and talking to the kids in the back seat, and it grows.
But that is the goal. The goal is to get the cameras on the site, so you all can see as well. Why not?
Okay, so these are, so most of these are more around upcoming things on the beach, not specifically around this situation. I know, Rhonda, you had another list of questions that somebody submitted earlier. Steve, yes. Do you have those questions?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them that I just threw together
Okay.
when it first came out. So just pick each of them.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions from the audience as well, if you guys want to raise your hand? Yes, sir. Neil?
Question for you. It seems pretty obvious that the key to the solution is monitoring that light and reacting as quickly as possible. The fact that you show a chart that shows very stable times of travel because you're monitoring, does that then mean that parking is not the issue?
That's a hard question, but I do think that parking is an issue because we can't get traffic off of the road. Like we're still,
But
if we
it
were.
doesn't seem to affect the travel time.
That was the travel time only from Peg Legs to the traffic signal.
Right.
Oh, that one location was from Peg Legs to the signal.
Well, I'm assuming he's doing as good a job monitoring the other travel times.
Another, yeah, the other signal from Gulf Breeze, from Chick-fil-A is what I call it, to the traffic signals is another graph.
What was the input?
It's not always, that graph does not stay level. That graph increases entirely throughout the day.
And really, that's, parking's one of those things, it does affect congestion. That's one of, that's why I put it like at third. We're just having a huge influx of traffic, but it's quality of life out here. We got a bunch of tourists coming to town, they don't know where to park. So I would say that, it's not only, the traffic is not only a problem, there's multiple other factors that go into the parking need, I would say.
And actually, one of our takeaways from this meeting is how do we communicate with people coming on the beach where to go to park. So once Casino Beach parking lot gets full, how do we communicate with those people where to go? So that's definitely something that we can work on that came out of this meeting. One of the other questions, are there plans to install more cameras or speed detection devices to improve safety or law enforcement? I will say, yes, we are working with the Sheriff's Department to look at putting in additional cameras on the beach. But from a traffic standpoint, do you guys need more cameras, or is that something that would help, or do you feel like you have a sufficient amount?
Yeah, we're working on it. We're currently have a bandwidth issue. A bunch of our stuff is on cellular right now. We're trying to get better comms so we can stream these things 24/7 and show them to the public. But right now we're limited by bandwidth, and so we're working on upgrading that infrastructure right now. But yes, I would like to be. We've got pretty much full view of Fort Pickens Road, as you saw. I can see. I've got my decision point. I know when it's a problem, and so once it's past that point. Yes, it does affect travel times, but I already know it's backed up once it's that point. So I'm looking at, we need to look at Via de Luna access maybe, seeing down Via de Luna. I don't know how far and where my decision point could be for that as well, not only eastbound but westbound. That would be what I would say is further down Via de Luna.
And one of the other questions, and you touched on it, but if you could provide a little bit more detail, what is the difference between traffic issues and parking issues, and how are those correlated?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the parking issue, I do see issues when it fills up. I mean, that's when Fort Pickens Road starts backing up, and so it would be nice if it would, not get to that point. We can just keep that Plan 2 running all the time. So we wouldn't have to flush Fort Pickens Road because 40 seconds would clear it out every single cycle, and then maybe we could alleviate all the traffic that's coming southbound. So there's multiple other factors, like I said, with parking. That's where I think the correlation ends, and so there's multiple other factors that go into parking, and such as quality of life.
Right. There's lots and lots of factors. Pedestrian crossings.
Yeah.
How many pedestrian crosswalks are there? Over here, they got to cross 4 lanes. The pedestrians cross 4 lanes. Over there, they're crossing 2 lanes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot more pedestrian crossings over here, unless I think on Fort Pickens Road. So, paved shoulder. If the shoulder's paved, so the more comfortable the driver is, the more expectation that driver has, like from Texas, Louisiana, that tourist has, the less surprises that tourist has, the better. The capacity of the road is going to be better. But when you have pedestrians that are crossing lots and lots of times and pushing that button, that rapid flashing beacon, that car has to stop, and that stops the traffic.
Rhonda, did you have a specific question?
I did. Could you explain for our constituents here, what is your difference when you say not actively monitoring versus actively monitoring, and repeat when you're active monitoring and who's responsible for the non-active monitoring, and what protocols do you have in place so that Lieutenant Barnes can call and say, flush it, because it needs to be.
So I'll start the DRMP side and the county side. So we have a task with the Florida Alabama TPO where they pay for half of it, the counties pay for the other half, to monitor on Saturdays and Sundays. And also we have a schedule that we've laid out for mainly Saturday and Sundays. Those are the busiest times, as well as events like special holidays, Bands on the Beach we've done in the past, but the program that we put in has handled that since then. Blue Angels, obviously, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, those Mondays or Thursdays that we capture those. But then you want to talk about some of the during the week.
Yeah, during the week. So Lieutenant Barnes and I are in close contact. And like I said, Good Friday was a little embarrassing for me. We've never historically ever had that. But Lieutenant Barnes called, and I was able to call somebody to put in the flush plan for Fort Pickens Road. that's the best.
It's-
This was another,
Right now, it's a resource thing. So I'm sure you've heard we're building the RTMC. So eventually we'll have more resources and more funding to be able to put an operator watching not only the Pensacola Beach, but all the traffic signals in the two county region.
But that
So if-
article in the Pensacola News Journal on the new facility
Mhm.
specifically said it would be staffed 5 days a week.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
not correct?
yeah.
But we have an additional task to handle weekends. So right now, so I'm assuming that same task is going to carry over once the RTMC is built.
So if we have residents who live across from Park West and they realize, hey, it's getting backed up, what is the best way for them to contact someone and say, it's time to flush the beach?
That's a good question. Without giving out my personal cell number, Lieutenant Barnes, you can call Lieutenant Barnes, and he calls me. That's our main number.
Is it answered on the weekend?
So it's monitored on the weekends, so the weekends aren't our problem.
Oh, okay.
So I will have to forward that number to me.
On the weekends, if there's a traffic issue, like we've seen I've shown you all the cameras that we have, you likely probably already know about
So
it.
let's take a step back, because these are the calls I do get. So what does Jim do when he gets a call on a Sunday? From somebody that lives down Fort Pickens Road. I pull up that camera right there. And that's what I see. There's not a problem. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at way back here. There's no traffic, no traffic, no traffic, no traffic, no traffic, no traffic heading toward the signal. There's no traffic. I might look at that, but then I look at this and I see no traffic backed up here. I see pavement here. There's not a problem. There's no reason to call. Because what's going to happen? And I hate to tell you all this, but what's going to happen when you call me at 12:58? What am I going to tell you? Yeah, we're going to flush it. Oops, excuse me. Yeah, we'll flush Fort Pickens. It'll flush. Yep, yes sir, gotcha. We're going to flush it. What's really happening is I know at 1 o'clock it goes into Plan 3. Excuse me, Plan 3. So it is flushed. But it works. This wasn't done for the calls. This was done, this is how it worked. We figured out this is the best 2019, 2021.
So someone else also asked, how did we figure that out? So can you give a little bit of the
So-
thought process behind that?
So Commissioner Bender came up to me at June 15th, just the week before June 15th of 2019, and said, would you sit in your room in my office on the weekends? Will you work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Would you work those 4 days? Monitor the traffic. That's what I did. I literally looked at these cameras every hour between 10 in the morning and about 7 at night. That's what I did. And I wrote down anytime I had to make a change. Now, at that time, we didn't have plans. At that time, we were just changing the maximum green time in the controller. And through the summer, we were like, okay, we need to program a time of day plan. This is called a time of day. So it's by the time of day, right? We put 4 different time of day plans in the controller. And so that's when we came up with this. For example, how? Okay, so another Commissioner Bender thing that I'm sure was originated from maybe a group here. He would say, hey, he didn't mean it like this, but make it green on Via de Luna. Make it green on Fort Pickens Road. I'm getting calls from Fort Pickens. I got calls from Via de Luna. I said, sir, we can't make it green for both. We can't. But what we'll do is we'll create plan number 4, balanced priority. 110 seconds of maximum team for Via de Luna, 80 seconds for Fort Pickens Road. That's what we'll do, a balanced plan. And so you'll come over here and you'll see 4s sprinkled. There used to be several 4s sprinkled. But again, how did we do it? We had several 4s sprinkled in here. And with Destin watching it every weekend, he's watching it, it's not working. Via de Luna is getting backed up and backed up and backed up and backed up. Fort Pickens Road is getting backed up and backed up. So what do? Delete all those 4s and just put a couple of them in there. And that seems to work.
So one of the other things that has been brought up is we're trying to put 20 pounds of potatoes in a 15-pound bag. So even with an optimal traffic design, what would you, just educate a guess, what would you say that would decrease the wait time at the red lights? If everything, in a perfect world. knowing that we have so many people coming on and off the beach
The perfect world.
in a perfect world.
I mean, the way I look at it, personally, and this is my kind of a personal opinion, and I've watched a lot of traffic videos. You know, Atlanta, they kept widening lanes. They kept building more and more lanes. Look at California. They have 10, 12 lane highways in California. Anybody I ever talked to that's from California says how long the commute time was in California, how long it took them to get somewhere. My dad went down to Bradenton. He went to the beach. It took him 2 hours to get to the beach from running a Airbnb or whatever he was at. He called me and said, I can't wait to get back home. Because I've got it down to 6 minutes from the Chick-fil-A to Pensacola Beach. So what do? You live in paradise. I'm sorry. I mean, you're putting 25,000 cars.
So I want to make sure that we keep it red light related, and then I'll address some of the questions here that were not red light related.
Yeah, just lights. I'm just a light person.
Is there red light related questions? You're not here. You and then you.
Do other communities have this type of system automated where it's monitored, computerized? I know with advancement in AI, it seems like instead of having to pay someone to sit there and look at a TV screen.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you. I'll give you.
If there is, have you determined the cost?
I'm going to give you the quick AI answer. $100,000. AI will come in. They'll put a black box in the cabinet. Then what's going to happen when you all call Ms. Huffberger? She's going to ask me, what did you do? I'm going to say, Ms. Huffberger, I put the black box in the cabinet. It's AI. They don't answer any questions. We can't like ask them, hey, what did you do to Fort Pickens Road? Because all these citizens are calling her. What did you do to, you know what they tell me? It's AI. So I strongly object to putting the black box.
You're saying that it's not possible. I'm not saying
Sir,
it's not possible for you to understand, to have someone that comes in and programs based on what the computer sees of the same thing that your eyes see on these things and program the lights. That's not a possibility, or you don't think
it's not any better. And the reason why it's better in other places is because those other people never had a traffic engineer or a Destin or a Jim to look at it and program it. So then these AI companies go out there and they actually program it, and then it's like, and people drive it and they get a green light, you know, they go from one intersection to the next intersection, they get progression, you know, coordination. But it was never programmed with coordination to begin with. So the first time you do it, it's amazing.
So something is better than nothing.
It's right. People.
Okay. Mike?
So here at Circle K, that light there, do you get to monitor that one? Because the right turn, if the person's going across the street, then either he's got to get in that middle lane, and that's just it's just too hard to do. So what that does is it backs up everybody that's going to turn out and turn right, and then we got parking issues where people are trying to back out and they can't because cars are blocking them, and it just becomes a big mess.
So
is there anything we can do to fix that problem?
That's not a traffic signal problem. That's a geometry problem. That's a problem.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's where I can help you with the traffic signal.
Right, but do you
the
see it?
geometry. Oh yes, we see it. We see it. So the example is I looked at these guys over here, because after the fireworks, I'm calling those guys, and I said, hey, the officer's in the corner. I can see him standing there.
Right.
Tell him to stop the cars from turning right and let all the peds go. Get the peds so we can free up. And back to your other point about AI, I'm sorry, 360 cameras up there, and it's counting all those pedestrians. It's counting all the cars. All the turning movement counts. So we kind of have some of that.
AI and human.
Yeah, we have kind of both.
Rhonda? Yes, ma'am?
Is the current system that you're using considered an adaptive traffic
No,
control system?
no, that's AI.
That's AI.
Okay, so
I will
that's
never do an
AI.
adaptive system right
Okay.
now until
All
she
right.
tells me to.
Okay, so you have your plans in place, but if the plans in place, like you said earlier, work, then why did Good Friday happen?
Ah,
That's the question, why it's congested, right? So it's the typical beach season day. So we made that plan before we saw those crazy growth numbers, right? In from 2019 all the way up till really 2022. We had that 18 to 20,000 car day. But once we get oversaturated, it really takes a hands-on approach, because if we were to use an AI system, I've got to make an algorithm that says, okay, we're on 98 now. So I want you to just put it in plan 2 and forget about Fort Pickens, right? So if that happens, I don't have that human element to sit there and be like, all right, I'm thinking about these guys. The parking lot's getting packed up too, so I'm going to put that flush in. But an AI system it's an algorithm. I have to put it, if this happens, then this happens, and so it takes a little human element to do that. And that's why Good Friday happened. It was just oversaturated and it needed that hands-on approach.
Yes, sir.
At what point do you admit that we've outgrown the light and we go back to the idea of an overpass that was about to be done some years ago?
So I think that is a great segue. Are there any more traffic or light related questions?
I've got one.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is, it's kind of light related, but when you're leaving the beach, the bad traffic on Via de Luna, it seems like people are coming out of either casino parking lots, sidelines, all around there, and they're coming and making a U-turn. And then Via de Luna doesn't move. I mean, you can sit there for an hour and not move because they're making U-turns.
So that, that's why I got these guys in the green uniform. So
I mean,
I want everybody, since we're talking traffic, I'm gonna give you another scenario that I saw, sitting in Thor, the command center here for Blue Angel. You know, we had a great Wednesday. We had a great Thursday morning and Wednesday and Thursday. And Friday morning, I was like, Dustin, what happened? What did we change? It was great. What happened? The Hilton, or one of the condos down here, called a tow truck. Tow truck arrives, blocks the outside lane, the eastbound lane, to stop, figure out who the driver was, hook up the car, pull the car out. If you block that lane, that's 40% of your capacity. So now we're back up on the 3 Mile Bridge, and we never got caught up on that Friday. The Friday of Blue Angels this year, we did not get caught up. But so this is the love-hate of Lieutenant Barnes. But you know, if you pull over pedestrians, you know, for crossing out in front of traffic, or you call tow trucks and you think tow trucks are going to be the solution, it might not be the best solution you want. I'm just saying that may not be the best.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I've been driving Fort Pickens for 33 years, and I want to thank you for this weekend and Sunday. It was fabulous. I had absolutely no problem. I think I put it in your Facebook that it was a good day. I feel it gets better as y'all are thinking and human beings are doing this. And I'm just one that thinks when the island's full, it's full, you know, it's just full, and that's what you have to tell people. They do it in Monaco, they do it in the south of France, it's full. Go to another beach.
That's really perfect.
What's the plan B that you have in place for when your computers go down in a power outage? What takes over then?
Mass panic.
That does happen.
We have system, like we have a battery backup system. So if we lose power, it's at least going to keep the intersection running for at least, 6 to 8 hours. And so they have batteries in it.
You go out to it with a light.
So if that goes out, yeah, it's up to those guys. We lose control at that point.
We do have a few things. So my office is a place that can control, right? He can log on to a secure website and have control. And like you said, there is battery backups at the traffic signal itself. But if it's more than 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah, but if that goes down, then it goes over to the men in green over here on the other side of the road.
Correct.
That is by default.
It'll be standard protocol at that
is
point.
the default, yes.
Is that a nightmare for you guys when that happens? Are you driving?
I think we had one more question in the back. Yes, sir.
Before we segue into the awesome traffic light, I'd just be curious, your guys' professional opinion on what you think the advantages would be of putting acceptable walkover, pedestrian walkover. You monitor this all the time, so how would that affect it in your opinion?
So pedestrian walkovers would help, but again, pedestrian walkovers at the signal. So if you're thinking about getting What's controlling the light is not the pedestrians, though. They're moving at the same time traffic is moving. So as far as a timing and efficiency standpoint, it wouldn't help, but safety, absolutely. It would help pedestrians get through the intersection. They're not having to worry about the 25,000 cars flying right by them, you know. So it's more of a safety thing.
And the drivers don't have to worry about the pedestrians.
Pedestrians.
You know.
If you did, like we were talking about earlier, when Via de Luna stops, and there's mid-block crossings through there, and those take time. So if there's green and nobody's coming, it takes a long time to recover from that. So like I said, you could sit there for an hour, and I'm not seeing any traffic at the light, and it's because of those mid-block crossings. So I mean, yeah, just about you have to do a study and everything else, but yeah, maybe not at the signal, but maybe some down Via de Luna or down Fort Pickens Road to just alleviate and let traffic move and get to the light. That might could help.
But how are you going to get the pedestrian to use that?
Right.
That's the problem
Right.
I have.
We see a lot of jaywalking.
I commute Davis Highway, and I never see anybody
Yeah.
pedestrian overpass at the hospital. The nurses are crossing at the traffic signal clear. So,
Neil?
I just want to get you guys, I particularly want to get you on the record here.
okay, great.
I know we have Commissioner Hoffberger's support. Clearly, the solution to this is to actively monitor that light on the weekends and special events with a human being who can make adjustments in real time. Do you feel you have the support of the rest of the Escambia County Commission to give you the resources, the dollars, and the people to make that happen?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay.
I feel like I have.
And it
So
is
there's
currently
no
monitored
excuse.
at those times, correct?
It is, but
I feel like I have that support because we have it monitored now. It's communicating now. It's the best we've ever had.
so
I also want to ask our law enforcement, do you guys have any recommendations or any questions, or can we assist you on the beach in any way? With traffic?
So I know a couple of comments have been made about enforcing pedestrian walkovers, and then why don't the deputies direct traffic? So the sheriff's #1 priority on this beach is preservation of life, and that trumps everything else. #2 is protection of property, and then the rest of you can argue between 3 and 10. Is it traffic congestion? Is it sea oats? Is it turtles? Is it nesting birds? Is it dogs on the beach? But if there's a fight in the parking lot over a parking space, at least 2 deputies have to go to that. So that means that I don't have 4 deputies to run the intersection, or 1 at every blinking light out here. I don't have it just comes down to resources. So the only time that I generally will step in and take all of their data and all of their work and just trash it and dismiss it is if that parking lot starts to become violent and it becomes a public safety issue, which is what happens. Then I will stop the traffic on Fort Pickens Road and I will empty out the casino parking lot to get those people off the beach. And keep in mind, it solves my immediate problem and it solves people's physical safety. But then it causes problems for Gulf Breeze and Highway 98 and everyone else around us. And then, oftentimes we're going to hear about Fort Pickens Road traffic, but here's someone that experiences the Via de Luna side of it as well. So we're really not the solution. If there's 10 seats on the airliner and 20 tickets are sold, we just come in and kick 10 people off and let the other 10 off. So we're not really solving it, we're just shifting the problem. But when we do it, we cause the county engineer more headache because we don't account for that spike and how long it takes to pick up. We just see our immediate, people are fighting, stop it, that's someone else's problem. So we only try to step in and do this when it becomes a public safety issue, but really it comes down to resources. I don't have 25 deputies out here working, so if I were to put one, it takes 4 to manually run that intersection. If I put one at every blinking light, that's probably another half dozen. I just don't have it. And then also with 3 times the cars and the traffic coming on the beach, in theory, there's 3 times the people and 3 times the problem. So every weekend, there's at least half dozen to a dozen swimmers in trouble. 4-year-old missing. Almost every other family comes out here with their children, and then they can't find them, and they're missing. So every deputy I have stops and goes to the sand to search for the people in the middle of the 100,000 people.
Thank you for that.
So it just comes down to resources.
Okay, I do want to make sure that we, ma'am?
He's been trying to ask a question for an hour.
Okay, last question. Yes, sir.
So, and there are really 7 separate reasons why the Fort Pickens problem is more acute, than the Luna problem. It's not a road that was built for that kind of traffic, whereas Luna is a 4-lane divided road. You've got the geometric problem of trying to make an acute 90-degree turn there. You have the pedestrian crosswalk. You have all kinds of things that exacerbate the problem with Fort Pickens as opposed to DeLuna. But with respect to the light, I'm really disappointed to hear the attitude appears to be the problem is being well managed and we have it under control.
So let me speak to that for a minute, because we do have an RFP out for traffic congestion management plan. So we are reevaluating that. Someone asked how many tax dollars have we spent on studies? Too many. But that was before I got into office, and a lot of that information isn't valid because we've doubled that in the last 2 to 5 years. So that is not accurate. We are actively working on that. That RFP is on the streets. We had to do some tweaking because it was not what I asked for, and I didn't want to spend taxpayer dollars on something that would not fix the problem. We do have the SRA meeting coming up at 5 p.m., so I want to be very respectful of that. If you have additional questions, please email them to district4@myesgambia.com. We will post this video on our Facebook, and then Melanie will also post the slideshow on our Facebook as well, so you can go back and reference that. We hope to do another town hall regarding the new traffic congestion management plan once we have more details. I did not realize before being in office that I didn't get to have more say in the purchasing and the negotiation of that. So there is a blackout period. So when people say, well, who did you pick? How much did it cost? What's going on? I don't know, because legally I can't know until that person is selected and that price is negotiated. So we are just now coming out of that blackout period, and I wanted to make sure that everything that we asked for was addressed. So we did spend your taxpayer dollars responsibly. And then we are working with the Sheriff's Department on spending some of our discretionary money and getting cameras and lights out here for you guys as well. And that's throughout District 4, because I know that is a concern, and public safety is, like you mentioned, top priority. So thank you all for coming tonight. Again, District4@myesgambia.com.